me unconditionally. And last, my mom. I don't think you know what you did. You had my brother when you were 18 years old. 3 years later, I came out. We were stacked, the odds were stacked against us. Single parent with 2 boys by the time you were 21 years old. Everybody told us we weren't supposed to be here. We moved from apartment to apartment by ourselves. One of the best memories I had is when we moved into our first apartment. No bed, no furniture, and we just all sat in the living room and just hugged each other. Because that's what we thought we made it. And when something good happens to you, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to look back to what brought me here. And you wake me up in the middle of the night in the summer times, making me run up a hill, making me do push-ups, screaming at me from the sideline of my games at 8 or 9 years old. We wasn't supposed to be here. You made us believe. You kept us off the street, put clothes on our backs, food on the table. When you didn't eat, you made sure we ate. You went to sleep hungry. You sacrificed for us. You the real MVP.
So we're in this series called Welcome Home. And the point is that we're family. What I've been saying is that whether you walked into church today for the first time in your life or whether you've been here dozens of times, we got more in common than you think. I'll give you one. That clip, it impacted you. I wonder why that is. I think there's actually a lot of reasons. I can give you one. We all need a real MVP. We all need some real MVPs. If you look around the world today and you see the best and the brightest, the popular, the powerful, the prestigious, I know one thing about all of them. They didn't get where they got by themselves. That behind the scenes, just outside the limelight for every single one of them, there are real MVPs. Maybe it's a parent, like Kevin Durant's mom, who put themselves second so that their child could have success. Maybe it's a spouse who will not allow their husband or their wife to give up. Keep saying, I believed in you then and I believe in you now. Maybe it's a friend who says, I know, I get it. Man, everywhere we turn in this world, it feels like there's voices saying, you can't, you won't, you're not, you'll never. But man, we need a friend in our life who will say those voices coming from outside and even the ones coming from inside are lies. We need a friend who will tell us the truth. That every single person here today, you matter. That you were created on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, by a God who does not make mistakes. He's got a plan for you. He wants to redeem your past, restore your present. He wants to release you to shape the future, and he wants to remind you today that he's with you, and he's for you, and he's going to walk alongside of you down this road called abundant life that starts now and stretches all the way into eternity. We all need a real MVP. We all need some real MVPs. There's an old African proverb that puts it this way. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You want to go fast? Go alone. You want to go far? Go together. And here's the truth. The truth is, in here, so many of us, we were born to go far. We got a long ways to go, man. There's people in this room today, right now, and God has called you to take an axe to the poisonous root that's been plaguing your family tree for generations. God has called you to be the one who says, enough. Enough. The abuse stops here. The anger stops here. The addiction stops here. The despair stops here. Enough is enough. Man, if you're going to do that, you're going to need some real MVPs. There's people in here today, and you've been called to stand for your marriage. It's an easy phrase to say, stand for your marriage. You know, it's just like saying, anything worth having is worth working for. That's so true, and it's so inspiring when you're talking about football or basketball or hockey. It's a little bit tougher in your marriage because sometimes it is hard in your marriage to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you've been called to say, when I told you that I would love you for better or for worse, until I took my last breath, I meant it then and I meant it now. There's people in this room today, you've been called to be a parent. That's fun, isn't it? It's a long road. Especially in light of the fact that parenting is the most powerful leadership position in history. And that leadership isn't Simon Says, do this, do this, do this. Leadership is follow the leader. Follow the leader, follow the leader. Set an example. You know, set an example of faith. Set an example of patience and joy and strength. We got a long way to go. There's people here today, God has given you an idea, an innovation that literally will shape the future. God has called you to step out educationally, to step out professionally, to step out with the kind of faith that you're only going to have when you got some real MVPs in your life. You want to go fast? Go alone. You want to go far? Go together. Solomon says it this way in Ecclesiastes 4. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked. And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. You need some real MVPs in your life. Oh, I'll go a step further. You need to be somebody's real MVP. You know that, though. Like if you and I were going to sit across the table from each other right now and I asked you, can you give me your 3 favorite memories? 0 out of the 3 of those memories would be moments when you were absolutely all by yourself. Man, I got to tell you, Mike, my greatest memory is that time that I beat solitaire on Windows 95. It was so, all the cards were 3Ding right out of the screen at me. I just sat there for hours, mesmerized. It was so cool. You know, I remember that time when I sat in my basement and I watched 4 straight football games all by myself. The only time I got up was to go to the bathroom. Just amazing. No. If I asked you to share your greatest memories with me, your memories would be about friendships and love and togetherness and relationships. You and me, we're hardwired that way. 2 are better than 1. Way back from the beginning, God spoke the universe into existence. God said, let there be light, and there was light, and God said it was good. God spun the galaxies, created the solar systems, our planet, mountains, forest, ocean, vegetation, animals, and God said, it is good. And then out of the dust of the earth, God created man, Adam. Adam means mud man. Out of the dust of the earth, God created mud man. And then he did something incredible. God breathed the breath of life into Adam. Spirit. In God's image, he was created. And God took Adam and he placed him in the Garden of Eden, paradise. And God gave Adam the greatest job in history. Adam's job was to name the animals. That's a great job right there. That's a great job. And God looked at Adam in paradise. Unbroken relationship with God. Greatest job in all of history. And God said, it's not good for man to be alone. I just want to stop there for a second. Because I think we make a mistake sometimes in the church. I think we make a mistake sometimes as Christians, and we Disneyfy the Bible. We Disneyfy the Bible. What I mean by that is that we've been raised in a culture that says the ultimate expression of our life is to one day find our Prince Charming or Princess Charming. And so we read the Bible and we look and we go, God looked at Adam and says, it's not good for man to be alone, so he created Eve for Adam, and Adam now had his Princess Charming, and everything was great. I think when we do that, we miss the point just a little bit. See, if you read through the Bible, what you see is that the Bible kind of uses three different kinds of expressions of love from the original Greek. Okay? So the first kind of love that the Bible talks about is agape love. Agape love is this expression of love that we have for everybody else on this planet. You know, for God so loved the world, for God so loved me that I want to reflect his love to this city. And I want to reflect his hope. I want to reflect his grace. I want to reflect his joy and his salvation to a world in desperate need. Make sense? That's agape love. Second kind of love that the Bible talks about is eros love. That's romantic love. And I think too often in our culture, even in our church culture, we identify eros, romance, as the ultimate expression of human existence, but that's just not true. Because the third love that the Bible talks about is phileo. Phileo love is friendship. Like deep, deep friendship where friends become family. Right? Where we have people, real MVPs, right? Like someone who loves Jesus and loves me and desperately wants the best for me. So I think when we read the creation account and we look at God saying it's not good for man to be alone, so he got Eve and he had romance and everything was fine, we've missed the whole point. God looked at Adam and says, Adam needs friendship, Adam needs community. In fact, I'll give you a secret. If you've only been married for a week, you maybe haven't figured this one out yet. But if you've been married more than a week, you should know this. The secret to your marriage being great is phileo, not eros. The secret to you living the life that you were created to live is not going to be romance. And when we elevate romance as the ultimate expression of human existence, think about what we're saying. What we're saying is that Nehemiah, he never lived a full life because he was single. John the Baptist, man, he must have been outside of God's will because he was single. The Apostle Paul missed it, single. Just trying to think of one other. Jesus missed it. Phileo love is a big deal. Having some real MVPs in our life, being real MVPs to others, it's a big deal. I would go as far as to say that if we have a church with lots of strong marriages but no friendships, we missed it. That's why I talk a lot about the fact that I don't want to be a big church. I want to be a small church with lots of people where no one goes unnoticed and no one gets missed. Phileo. Real MVPs. You need some real MVPs. You need to be somebody's real MVP. In the New Testament, there's 59 one another commandments. Phileo, one another, love one another. I'll give you some examples of the 59 one another commands in the New Testament. Be at peace with one another. Wash one another's feet. Love one another. Be devoted to one another. live in harmony with one another, accept one another, instruct one another, greet one another with a holy kiss. Cultural in context, please don't kiss me. When you wait for one another. I like that. Wait for one another. Serve one another. Carry one another's burdens. Be patient. Be kind and compassionate to one another. Forgive one another. Teach one another. Admonish one another. Encourage one another. Build each other up. It goes on and on and on. And here's my point. You want to live the life that you were created to live? You want to become the person that you were created to become? You need one another to one another. You need some real MVPs. You need to be somebody's real MVP. I'll tell you when this really hit home for me. It's when I transitioned out of my role. I had been teaching and coaching high school for about a decade. And God told me to transition and work here as a youth pastor. In the last couple of years, teaching and coaching, I became kind of a big deal in my own tiny little world. I was kind of a big deal, you know. Like, I won Basketball Coach of the Year for the province of BC. I used to teach History 12, loved it. And my History 12 class for 3 years in a row got the highest mark on the government provincial exam. Back when everybody actually had to take it. Basketball team won a provincial championship. I even found a way to make some extra money in the summers. I was running sports camps all in my tiny, tiny little world. I was kind of a big deal, you know? Sort of self-sufficient. And God told me to become a youth pastor here, and I remember the Sunday that they announced us, and Mike and Corinne are going to be your next youth pastors, and we stood up and we waved, and I hope people clapped. I think they might have. And I remember that service, and God put in my head, he said, remember when you were walking into church today, and there was that young dude with a surfer, long hair surfer dude cut. And remember he was there, he had board shorts and flip-flops, and he was kind of worshiping to the music. I knew of him, but I didn't really know him. God said, you need to tell him that he needs to be a youth leader. Okay, and at the same time God's telling me that, I'm sitting right over here. That dude is sitting way over there. And God said to him, you need to be a youth leader. So the service ends, and we both walk to find the other one. And he was a faster walker than me because we met about right here. And I looked at him and I said, you need to be a youth, and at the same time he said, God told me that I need to be a youth leader. And that was the beginning of what I would refer to as my dream team. Like these youth leaders who became incredible friends. And some incredible friends who became youth leaders. God allowed me to have this group of real MVPs in my life, and he allowed me to be a real MVP to others. I was reading the other day how it said when you're in church leadership, you have to understand that when your roles change or when the church grows, you will not finish with who you start with. You know, all those people that you started with will leave, or a lot of them will. And you know, for Corinne and I, a little bit of that has happened, but not a lot. So many of that original dream team are still here. They're still backbone in many ways of this church. Now, surfer dude cut his hair, but he's still here. And like many other of that original dream team, they still wake up every morning and they say, God, change me, and you changed me to change the world. It's incredible. After being a youth pastor for a few years, I transitioned into the role of lead pastor. And right around that same time, a lady named Sandy Howling, many of you know her, came in to look after our finances. And after doing that for about 4 or 5 months, she came to me and she said, Mike, I've never seen a church like this in all my years. I've never seen anything like this. I said, what do you mean? Now you got to understand, I know the big picture of our budget. Like, are we spending more than we taking in? Like, sort of, that's about all I know. I don't know, like, who gives what or anything like that. She said, I know you don't know the details, but let me tell you this. In all of the churches that I've been around in my whole life, I've never seen anything like this. This church, the budget is largely provided. Most of our top givers are 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old wingnuts. I said, well, it doesn't surprise me at all. That's just the dream team. I knew them. I know that for them, like, a mission isn't a trip, a mission is your life. A mission isn't a trip that you go on for a week, that's cool, but a mission is your life. I knew what they were like. I knew that long ago they had come to the point of their lives, none of them were wealthy, but they had come to the point in their lives when they said, God, take me. Take my time, take my talents, take my treasure. Change me and change me to change this world. The dream team. My dream, and if I've accomplished anything in my life in ministry, it wouldn't have happened without them. But that's not even the point. It's not even the point. I wouldn't have wanted it to happen without them. And that's not even the point. Those friendships, that dream team, that was the point. See, I thought we were just bringing a bunch of gifted people in together and we would help these kids. What I didn't realize is that our relationship in so many ways, that was the point. That we were being changed, that we were being impacted, that the journey was the destination. Solomon goes on to say, I'll tell you something. One person is going to be overpowered, but two can defend themselves. Every time I read that, I think to myself, life will beat you up, won't it? You ever notice that? Life will beat you up. That's a near and dear topic to my heart because I've been beat up a lot in my life. As I was preparing this sermon, Corinne said, you should explain to the people why you got beat up so much as a teenager and as a young adult. You should tell them that the reason that you got beat up so much is because you would act and talk without thinking. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to tell them. I got beat up all the time because I would just act and talk without thinking. But then I began to think about the thinking thing, and I realized, looking back, oh no, I just thought really dumb things. You know what I mean? I would have these ideas, and they were really ridiculous and stupid, and I would just do them or say them, and then I would get beat up sometimes. One of the worst beatings of my life happened, obviously, at the downtown 7-Eleven parking lot in Red Deer. Why wouldn't it? Okay, so I was hanging around with my buddies Jason and Grant, and we were walking into the 7-Eleven at the same time that 3 guys were walking out. Did I tell you that I used to have dumb ideas and think that they were really good? Did I say that? Okay, so one of the dumb ideas I had at that time was this. If I'm walking in and there's a girl walking out, I open the door and let her walk out. But if I'm walking in and there's a guy walking out, if he's within 15 years of my age, I'm not moving. Not a chance, man. I'm walking straight in the door. And I don't care whether you have to jump out of the way, you better jump out of the way. I thought that was a good idea. Okay, so I walk in the door, and they're walking out, and I just hammer this guy on the shoulder, and he trips back and falls against a Cool Ranch Doritos display, which is super insulting when you think about it. So next thing you know, we're out. It's Friday night in Red Deer, so there we are, 3-on-3. We're going to fight in the parking lot of the downtown 7-Eleven in Red Deer, Alberta. So fun, but it got bad because a car pulled in the parking lot, and it was 2 of their buddies, and now it was 5 of them and 3 of us. Not great. And then I looked up, and I saw my buddy Jason, and Jason was running across the street away from the parking lot yelling, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Definitely wasn't a fighter. I know that part. Okay, so now it's bad. So now it's 5 of them and 2 of us. And I look over and I saw Grant being beat up by 2 of them against a dumpster in the downtown 7-Eleven parking lot in Red Deer, Alberta. And there's 3 of them and 1 of me. Did I tell you I used to have dumb ideas and think they were really smart? Because in that moment, this is what I thought. This is going to be awesome. No, this is fantastic. Like 3 of them, like, this is going to be my Rocky Balboa moment. Like, I'm just going to beat all 3 of them up. So I punched one in the head, and it was great. Like, I made great contact, and he went stumbling back, and I'm like, and while I was admiring that, something amazing happened. One of the guys who was standing behind me showed incredible dexterity. He started a punch that started back here, and it came around and gave me the second best shiner, second best black eye of my life. I didn't fall down, but I saw stars, and for about the next 5 minutes, I got the boots literally taken to me. And then the police showed up. The end. Okay, so now I tell you that story because it's sort of funny, but also because in a way you and me can relate even today. And what happens to us if we're not careful, we can go swaggering into life like Mike Manis swaggered into the downtown 7-Eleven parking lot. No, do you understand what I'm saying? Life better get out of my way. No, I got this. No, I'm good. But life will beat you up. And here's how it does it. Life will overpower you. It can start simply enough. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's depression. Maybe it's relationship problems or financial problems or health problems. Maybe something or someone that you thought would always be there for you to count on is now running across the street the other direction saying, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. And maybe like me, even in those moments, you think to yourself, no, I got this. This is going to be my Rocky Balboa moment. One more thing happens. One more blind side punch. And you're being overpowered. You've been there. Two are better than one. I guess what I'm saying is you're going to need some real MVPs. And if you're swaggering into life thinking, I got this, and life better get out of my way, okay, cool. You need to be somebody's real MVP. Probably the worst year of my childhood was grade 4. Grade 4 was bad. I was in trouble all the time. I couldn't pay attention in school. I had my own little desk out in the hallway. Couldn't shut up, Got picked on the school bus. Remember, like the last day of grade 4 at my school, River Glen Elementary School in Red Deer, we were all supposed to go on a big field trip to Fort Calgary. It was going to be awesome. And then with about a week before, I did one more stupid thing, and the teacher called me aside and said, you can't go, man. You'll wreck it for everybody. And for me, I still remember sitting there, leaning against the dictionaries, looking out the window, while all the buses pulled out of the parking lot with all the grade 4 students, while I stayed back. You say, well, it's just kid trouble. I know, but in that moment, I felt overpowered by life. And my summer between grade 4 and grade 5 wasn't a lot of fun. Like right near the end of the summer before school started, I jumped in an old pickup truck that a buddy of my dad's was restoring, and he had taken the door handles off the inside. And I slammed the door behind me, so now I'm in there, and there's a wasp's nest in the seat. Dude, I don't know how long I was in there. It felt like 5 hours. Got stung a lot. So I literally went limping into grade 5. Overpowered by life. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm in trouble on the playground. I'm in trouble in the principal's office. I'm in trouble in the classroom. I'm in trouble at home. Everywhere I look, man. But there was one good thing. My grade 5 teacher's name was Mrs. Bass, and she was new. She didn't know me. That's good news. Fresh start. So remember on the 3rd day of school, we're running laps at lunch. I have no idea why we were running laps at lunch. Why would you do that? But that's what we were doing. We were running laps at lunch. And I remember it because As I was running around, Mrs. Bass was on the inside of the track walking, and I ran past her and she grabbed my hand. Almost gave me whiplash. And I'm standing here and she's looking at me and she says, I've heard all about you, Mike Manis. So my little tiny grade 5 heart just broke. Oh, she knows me. So I don't get a fresh start after all. She said, I heard that you're trouble, that you get in trouble, that you find trouble, that you are trouble, and that you're going to bring trouble into my life, but I don't believe a word of it. She looked at me and she said, I've been watching you. You're an amazing young man, and I think that you can do anything you set your mind to. You want to hear something insane? I have no idea whether she went home that night thinking that she might have saved a little boy's life, but she did. Years from that day, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, every once in a while, when I felt overpowered by life, I would sit in my room and I would think about that moment and ask myself, what if that's true? Let me tell you something. You need some real MVPs in your life. You just do. And if you're swaggering through life right now like I swaggered into the downtown 7-Eleven in Red Deer, okay, be somebody's real MVP. It's a big deal. Last week, I had a chance to talk to 2 young women who came to Southside for the first time, and they told me, man, you know what's weird? Like, they graduated from high school 3 years ago. They said in high school, you kind of have a peer group built in. Like, you show up but you said when you get out of high school, it's so hard to make friends. I know you've heard me say this before, but that's why we do small groups at Southside, because we don't want anybody left behind. We don't want anybody forgotten. We don't want anybody missed. We want everyone to have a real MVP. We want everyone to be a real MVP. So we get intentional about it. So if you're swaggering through life right now like Mike Manis walking into 7-Eleven in Red Deer, awesome. Maybe you should lead a small group. But every single person here should be in one. And if you're not, you should text JOIN to 604-670-3040. One last thing. I think sometimes we think being a real MVP or having a real MVP in our life is like this big, massive moment, but sometimes it's a little thing. Sometimes it's a grade 5 teacher who just takes time out of her day to go, I think you might be okay. About a year and a half ago, my son Gabe, who's 19 now, was playing a basketball game. And we had some friends of ours that came to watch the game. What's cool is that they're actually part of the original dream team of youth leaders and incredible friends. But at this point in their life, they had kids, and one of their kids, he was 7 years old. His name is Haven. And in his mind, Gabe and him were good buddies. He had read about Gabe in the newspaper, and let me read for you. This is what Corinne wrote about that night. The stands were filling up, warm-up music was on, a group of boys busy setting up the metal garbage cans to make some noise. Number 1, that's Gabe's number, had been at the gym for hours already, doing everything he could to be ready to win this game. He had 20 points before the first quarter was out. A win was all but certain. In through the gym doors came a 7-year-old boy holding tightly to the hand of his dad. Anxiety etched on his face. This was his first basketball game, and he was here to watch his friend, number 1, who he had seen a few weeks before in the newspaper, play the game that he was so gifted for. Haven didn't look at the world like other kids did. He saw meaning in things that other people didn't even notice. He felt things acutely that didn't even register to other kids. He hated crowds, didn't really like to talk, and found social interactions almost unbearably difficult. But he really wanted to come watch his friend, number one, play basketball. So when he came, clutching his dad's hand tightly, finding a seat in the crowded stands. Number one didn't disappoint his little friend Haven. God had gifted this player with a great gift, and he was playing like he was born to. Halftime came, and Haven hadn't uttered a single word, except a few to his dad. So engrossed he was in watching his friend play basketball. During halftime, number one left the bench and made his way across the gym floor and up onto the bleachers where Haven sat. Sweat running into his eyes, he held out his fist to Haven. Haven made his little hand into a fist, and they bumped. Number one headed back down the bleachers and onto the court as Haven's face turned a deep scarlet, the smallest smile on his lips. And for a moment, heaven held its breath. In the midst of the banging of the garbage cans and the crowds and the sweat was an anxious 7-year-old boy holding out his little fist for his friend number one to bump. That was a moment that made heaven hold its breath. In the midst of our striving and our sweating and our intensity to produce and succeed, don't miss the little fist being held out for us to bump. Those are the moments that we were created for. Those are the moments that make heaven hold its breath. Hey, you and me, we're more alike than you might think. I know one thing that's true of both of us. We need some real MVPs. We need to be somebody's real MVP. Let's pray. Dear God, I thank you that you have not forgotten about anyone. That every single person in here today matters to you, and help no person be forgotten at our church. May we be a church that notices the unnoticed, that loves the lonely. And God, would you give us the ability to be a small church with lots of people? Would you grant us the opportunity to have some real MVPs in our life and to be a real MVP for others so that we could go far and become everything that you created us to be. In your name, amen. God bless you guys. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to see you at any of our 3 Sunday services held at Sardis Secondary School on Stevenson Road in Chilliwack, British Columbia. For more information, please visit southsidelife.com.